let's get into our next interview today with our special guests, Megan and Melissa. So a little bit about them. Our CodeJoy special guests here. There they are. We've got Megan Heineman and Melissa Cook from Kent School District, who are going to share how they have been building some school-based coalitions in their district. So welcome on screen, Megan and Melissa. Thank you both so much for being here. This is so great.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Thanks. We had a good time making all the things for our Make-A-Thon too. Well, so to kick off this interview, I wanted to just start with each of you individually with just maybe a very brief, sort of like couple sentence long biography. What was your first teaching job, and how did you get into computer science and robotics? And maybe we'll start with you, Melissa. What was your first teaching job, and how did you get into computer science and robotics?
So I came to teaching a little bit later in my career. I started at LAUSD, and I taught a fifth grade class. And so, and that was great. The kids were great. Eventually, I moved states. I went to Texas, taught for a while, and then came back to Washington State, where I've been for the last 10 years. But I went from teaching elementary, early elementary, like first grade, all the way up to sixth grade. And so I was really nervous about those standards, that big jump. So I took all the professional development I could take, and I kind of came into this niche of STEM and robotics, and I fell in love. And so then I brought it to my students, and they fell in love. And so it's been just a journey for me ever since, just constantly taking classes, learning more things, trying to get stuff for my students. And so that's how I came in the STEM field.
Oh, I love that. It came from a little bit of anxiety from working with little kids to working with the big kids. And so then from there, you got into technology and gung-ho ever since. That's great. How about you, Megan? What was your first teaching job, and how'd you get into computer science and robotics?
Yeah, so my journey is a little different than Melissa Cook's. I've got into teaching middle school math way back when, and it's always been in Washington State. So I always love hearing her stories when she's like, oh yeah, in California, or like all over. But so I taught middle school math, and then eventually went to high school math. And I actually did not get into computer science or coding until I was out of the classroom and doing some other learning for myself and trying to explore some different avenues, and got a job as a digital learning coach, which is what I'm currently doing. But one of my coworkers in that first digital learning job was really into computer science and coding. And so she would talk about it all the time. And through that, when I ended up coming to Kent for my current position and working with Melissa, who's also really into it, we found out like that we actually had that same person in common. So I think she actually kind of got Melissa Cook and I both interested and excited about coding. But yeah, really a lot of it has come from seeing the things that like Melissa's like, hey, did you see this, or did you see that? And then being introduced to it there and seeing more of it at conferences, and just seeing the excitement that kids get when they get to do something and build something and create and like problem solve through it. But yeah, it was not until later in life and when I was out of the classroom, but now I get to actually go in and take it to the classroom in my current role. So
that's great. I love how yours came out of a community, like somebody was loud about what they loved, and that brought you into it. So I think that's also a nice thing for all of us to hear, like, be loud about what you're doing in the classroom. It's not self-promotion when you share your projects, it's computer science promotion, right? Like that's how Megan got into it. That's great. So what is your current role within the district? What do you do? Starting with Melissa, what do you do within Kent School District out in Washington?
Okay, so we are, I guess I'm going to talk for both of us, but you can say more onto it, but because we have the same role. We're digital learning coaches. And what that is we are still educators, but we're on special assignment. So we're out of the district office, and we primarily work with librarians in our school. We have 30 or 40, I can't, this is the summer, about 40 schools that we work with. different librarians, and that's kind of our into the school. And so we are helping them to integrate technology in their spaces, and then we kind of meet new teachers through that relationship and try to get robotics and STEM into those classes as well. And then I know Megan's going to add on and say so many more great things that we do, but I'll let her talk.
Feel free to add on to that like job description, Megan, but maybe also tell us a little bit about like Kent School District. What kind of kids are there? How big is it? Is it 200 kids? Is it 200,000 kids? Like, tell us a little bit about Kent School District too.
Yeah, so the Kent School District is actually just south of the Seattle School District. So we're just south of Seattle. We have roughly 25,000 students in our district. So we're large, but we're definitely not the largest in Washington state by any means. And we're very diverse. I mean, we span, Melissa always knows it, but 70 square miles or something like that. We're area wise a very large district. So we've got some of our schools are way out, it feels like in the middle of nowhere. And then we have some of our schools that are right smack dab in the middle of like a city of Kent, downtown Kent, where you've got all the busy traffic and our, light rail, all of that. So it's very diverse. We have over 100 different languages in our schools. So there's a lot going on depending on what school you're at, which also means that, equity can definitely be an issue of trying to get resources and programs and things to all of the different buildings that need it, and helping support that and make sure that all of our students have the supports and the resources that they need to be successful. So I think that's actually where some of like what's nice about our role.
Sorry, you got muted there. I have to unmute again. All good.
I don't even know how that happened. I wasn't touching anything. My hands were up here. That was weird. It's coding. Somebody has coded my computer.
A sunburst. That's what I always say. Oh, sunspot. Anyway,
I'm gonna keep my hands up there though.
About your role as a digital coach and how
so I think Cook can add as well if she wants, but I think because we are at the district office, it's nice because we are able to go to all of those schools and work intentionally with the librarians or with the teachers, or even through some of the after school initiatives that we've started, where we bring teachers together to learn more about coding and think about, how they can bring these sort of lessons and activities to their classrooms, to their students. And then through that, we've also, and I know that we'll probably get into this more, but through that, we've been able to do other things like figure out how to get, hummingbirds that teachers can check out from us to use in their spaces so that they're not having to buy these things for themselves. Yeah. So we've tried to really get creative with how. And because we have the time and the space to do that, it's been really nice, because then the classroom teachers aren't having to go out and try and source all of this. We can take on a lot of that and then share that wealth and that information with them.
Yeah. I think sometimes people get big, especially spread out districts. It's like, oh, well, how do you what's the point if everybody's so spread out? Should we make a bunch of smaller districts or something? I know that's been a topic here in Pittsburgh, breaking up bigger districts to make smaller districts, or combining smaller districts to make bigger districts. But what you're saying is an excellent argument for a central resource office, so that you can share resources like physical computing tools and things like that you can actually take out to these different spaces. So with that, I've got kind of two directions my brain is going with this, but one of them is, so you said you primarily work with like librarians, right? Librarians and media specialists. That's the new word, right? Media specialists. So when you're working with media specialists, how do you approach STEM, technology, coding? Is there like an angle that you use to get them engaged? And that's open to either one of you, whoever wants to jump in. How do you appeal to media specialists?
So I'll start. I guess we kind of work, with them and find out what would they like to see in their library. What are their passions? Some we bring in novel engineering. So that's where they're teaching close reading skills to their students, reading a book, and then they take on one of the characters as a client, the students do, to solve one of their problems. And so that's where we get some of the engineering in that way. We have others that love coding and video games. And so we help give them resources and do trainings for that with Make Code and Microbit. And then maker spaces. It's a wonderful place in the library to have a maker space. And so they'll come to us and ask us, how do you do it? What kind of resources do I need? What kind of projects can you come in and help us? And so that's kind of how we start out with our teachers and librarians.
Yeah, one comment on that. I remember when I used to work for Bird Brain, I'd go to conferences for them, and I'd set up my little table full of all these little cardboard robots, and I'd always have some sort of literacy connection with one of them. And this was a number of years ago now, but I remember specifically at TCEA, which was like the Texas, I forget what the other letters stand for, but it was a Texas librarian, or TL something. It was a Texas librarians conference. And I would have these librarians who would come up to my table in a little bit of a panic, and they'd go, "They're turning my library into a makerspace. Is this a makerspace?" And I'd be like, "Oh, come here, sit down. Let's talk about it." Like, a makerspace is a big idea, right? And like, we're doing robotics, that can be an element of your makerspace. But maybe this one's for Megan. Have you seen, I don't know how long you've been in your role for, but have you seen a transition with teachers from like tech hesitant to tech curious to tech willingness? Like, have you seen a change over the years? And has that been just something that's kind of happened, or have you been pushing or facilitating that and kind of reaping the benefits? But how have you seen librarians' attitudes towards makerspaces change?
Oh, that's a good question. So in my current position, I've actually only been in this role here in Kent for the last, I guess this is my 3rd year I'm going into. But I mean, I've worked in this similar role and being in education. It does feel like, well, one, I think given COVID, people kind of had to get tech curious, right? Like we had to figure things out and we had to go with the flow and do all of that. But I think just with the way, technology is definitely at the forefront. All of our students have technology devices in their hands 24/7, it seems, right? And so I think, at least from what I've seen, that's kind of pushed teachers to start to try and think about, like, how can I do things differently? Because I need to engage my students and get them interested in what's happening up front instead of what's happening on their devices. And then with our district in particular, and even the district I was in before, we've all been one-to-one. And so students have, laptops, devices, Chromebooks, et cetera, that they're walking around with. And so it's, for teachers, it was trying to figure out, how do I use these in a way that is not just, oh, they're going to get on and play a game, but they're using it educationally. And I think that's where our roles have been really important, because then we can come in and have those conversations and work with them to figure out, like, where are you at? Are you at, the very beginning and nothing about, how to use Make Code and a microbit or any of that? Or even just, I know how to use my Outlook, right? Like, we have people like that. And so it's figuring out, like, how do we support them and asking those questions and really coaching them through, like, it doesn't have to be anything really big. Start small, have your students teach you the things. You don't have to know how to do it all, which can be scary, right? Because I know when I was in the classroom, I wanted to be the expert. That's why you were paying me, to teach you. But sometimes it's great to also let the kids be the teachers and let them kind of, lead through that. So thinking about just how we can support that. And I do think our librarians in particular, at least in Kent, because they have seen kind of this whole, I don't know, like, progression, a lot of them are excited. We talk about it a lot. They've seen that, they've come to the after school things that Melissa and I have done. And so they are a lot more, I think, excited, curious, they want to explore. And so they reach out and, ask like, hey, can you come help me do this? And some of them are very, they take baby steps, but, it's a whole spectrum. And so it's supporting that, I think that's key.
So I love everything we're talking about so far. There's actually a question that came in the chat from a private chat here, which I think this might be for Melissa. You'd mentioned something called novel engineering. What is novel engineering? That sounds like such a cool project. And this is also a call out. If they're bringing up anything that you want to know more about, feel free to pop your questions in the chat. This is an open conversation for everybody to participate in. But what's novel engineering, Melissa?
So novel engineering came out of Tufts University, and they created this kind of program where you're just reading regular books, any book. It can be from the simple children's 32-page picture book all the way up to novels. And as the student is reading, they're thinking about the different characters and they're analyzing the problems. Yes, that's it right there. They're analyzing the problems of the characters, and they're trying to decide, hey, I noticed that this character's having this problem, and I'd like to solve that. And it doesn't have to be the main character. It could be a side character. And so then they think about the novel, the situation that they're in, the environment, and they try to solve a problem in those constraints. So for example, they're not going to just whip out like a magic potion and say, we have that, that's our solution. So they really have to think through the engineering and design process and what their client needs, and if those materials are even available in that environment.
Yeah.
So
oh my gosh. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. It's just a great way to getting kids, and their comprehension of the story is increased. And it could be as simple as the engineering part could be just as simple as talking about the solution, or they could then draw it out. This is the plan, and then to take it all the way to actually make a prototype.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm looking at this website here, and I'm loving these kids reading a book in the science lab. Like, that picture by itself communicates so much about what this approach is. It seems like it's really de-siloing learning. It's taking, okay, I love the idea of choosing a character as your client. So, okay, so one of my favorite novels is To Kill a Mockingbird. And there's that part where Scout is wearing a ham costume and she falls down and gets squished and her legs get tangled up. So maybe her problem would be like, design a safer ham to wear or something like that. And then if they have the materials, if they've got some chicken wire and paper mache, hey, they could make it. But man, this sounds like a really great, a great gateway for librarians and media specialists to be like, science is not distracting from reading. STEM is adding to the process. And I think that's something that when those librarians came up to me, they'd be like, how am I supposed to teach books and robots? And they saw those things as so separate. And so whenever we do a project like that, like robot poetry or whatever, we call it like robotics yoga. We take two things that are really far apart and make them touch, right? So like we show like, okay, we're showing flexibility in learning. And that is just an awesome resource. We'll be sure to share that one on the Padlet. But here's another question for you. We brought up the pandemic a few times, and it is an unavoidable moment in everyone's work life, personal life, everything, but really especially in education. I mean, education was changed in so many ways. And Megan, you brought up one way. I read some statistics on one-to-one devices. Pre-pandemic, it was about 20% of schools had one-to-one devices. Post-pandemic, if that's where we are now, at this moment, it's about 90% of schools have one-to-one devices. So I love what you said about that. Kind of like broke down the door for some of those tech hesitant teachers, like, hey, your kids have the internet now. We're going to have to learn how to incorporate this. But what I'm really excited about what you guys are doing at Kent with such a spread out district, with such a diverse district, with really going in through these media library specialists, you guys are building coalitions of teachers from all across the district to learn technology. So are you like, what skills or what tools, or how are you scheduling things? Like, what are some of the ways that you're actually getting teachers from across this big district to connect? And what are they connecting about? Whoever wants to take that one first.
All right, I saw that little like,
Take it away, Megan.
I guess that's me. Yeah, so it's one of those things where I don't know, given the last couple years.
Oh, sorry, you got muted again. I don't know why that keeps happening. Sunspot.
I think my mouse is like magnetic or something, because if I leave it over the mute button, it magically mutes itself after a while, even though I don't touch it. So I'm going to drag my mouse way off the screen. Okay. No, so it's been a challenging thing, right? We've had to definitely think through it, think about how we can bring people together. Way back before I was even in my role, I think probably when I first started teaching, our district had a program. I don't even remember what it was called. Melissa Cook will remember, but it basically was a way to bring those those teachers who were definitely interested in technology together, and they like learned about it, and they were the ones that then would go back and like share it out at their buildings and teach others. And so we have really tried to, and Melissa actually started it before I moved into this role, so she can talk more about it too, or add to it if she wants. But we really tried to think about, especially during the pandemic, I think, to figure out ways of supporting them. We brought together what we called the Digital Learning Ambassadors program. And that was, we invited teachers, or we opened it up to teachers at all schools throughout our district who were interested, excited, wanted to learn more about technology and how they could use it to energize, excite their students in the classroom and use it in engaging ways. And so we would bring them together. Obviously, during the pandemic, a lot of it was virtual, so which is great, because I think that also our teachers, being such a large spread out district, didn't feel like they had to rush out the door right after school to make it to a meeting. They could wrap up, finish up what they were doing, talk to a student, and then hop on the Zoom right at 4 o'clock when we would start the call, or whatever time it was, and learn from, we have different partnerships, right? Like we've partnered with CodeJoy, obviously. We partner with a lot of Microsoft tools, because we are a Microsoft district in our where we're at, but we partner with a lot of different companies and people in order to bring experts kind of from the different platforms in, so that our teachers can really learn about like how best to utilize things like OneNote, or my brain is going, you know, like Make Code, that sort of stuff. And that's been really great, because then they can ask those specific questions, similar to like today, right? Bringing people in and then allowing others to ask. They could ask questions. They got to see like how it works from a student perspective, from a teacher perspective. And then they had us as digital learning coaches after the meeting, that if they still had questions, they could reach out to us. We would come into their classrooms just to support them. And kind of from that lens, we really ramped it up to like offer, this past year, we kind of had like a DLA tier 2 level, where it was those teachers that had really gone above and beyond and were really kicking it off to bring technology into their classrooms or their spaces. And so we had a small cohort of like 7 people, I think, where we intentionally met. We did things like paper circuits and all sorts of stuff that we then built lessons, built activities, and really honed in on like, what does that look like in their space, to try and create resources that we could then share out on like our district website, that sort of thing, but really hone in their skills so that they can start to be the ones that are maybe teaching some of our courses throughout the district even. And that was in its infancy, so it's still a work in progress. We're still building that part of it. And then through that, we've done a ton of other stuff too, and I'll let Cook kind of talk.
Yeah, if I can direct a question towards you, Melissa, about that. I love the title, Digital Learning Ambassadors, because that implies don't keep it to yourself, right? So like just the title alone. So who are the Digital Learning Ambassadors? Where did that program start and where is it at now? That one's for you, Melissa.
So as Megan said, we had this kind of program a bunch of years back. So in our district, when I was first starting, they had a program. It was called Leading Educators. So that's how, and I've told you I took a lot of training. That was one of the trainings I took, and so that's how I kind of got started in taking these classes. And I just fell in love with everything, and it just grew. And then I went back to school, get my master's in digital education leadership. And so that's kind of, and then I applied for, when they brought the program back at the district level, I applied and it was accepted. So it was fantastic timing. And then in the role, I said, let's bring that program back, because we had kind of stepped away from it for several years. And so we kind of developed it. We work with a group that partners with Microsoft, like Megan said. And for example, like OneNote, it's kind of a fun thing for teachers to use, but we wanted to kind of put a spin on it. How could, like, take it out of the box? And so it's like, how could you do escape rooms with OneNote? And so that's how we kind of got our classes kind of really kind of exciting to teachers, something a little bit different. So they're going to learn the OneNote skills, but they're going to go back to their classroom with this great resource that's going to really engage their students. And so, and then adding that STEM component, because in our state, we've adopted the ISTE standards. We call them the Washington EdTech standards. And so we want to, highlight how technology can enhance the curriculum that they're using in their classroom. And so through that, needing the STEM clock hours, we developed classes through through CodeJoy, microbits, hummingbirds, and so it's just kind of grown. So so we're getting people part of the DLA program. Our librarians sometimes are part of that program, and then just getting the teachers excited, working with them, and they're pulling in other teachers, and so it's just every year growing a little bit more.
And you're really growing it in a really grassroots way. Like you're saying, like the teacher that you engage is like, this is cool. And they're bringing in another teacher. And I really feel like the way that you guys are doing that is different from how I've seen some other districts do it. Instead of just having like, oh, and you can do STEM, and having like a, kind of like a generic sort of example, what you shared with like novel engineering, that is STEM geared towards people who like reading. Right. So it's specific. So I think sometimes we get worried like, oh, if we get too specific, that'll cut people out. But like, I think specific, what I've seen from teachers is like, if you say anything is too many things. That's what we say a lot here at CodeJoy. So like when you're giving them some sort of a design idea or design challenge, like making it specific. And if you make it specific, people are good at generalizing that. They're bad at making a general thing specific. So you had talked about a OneNote escape room. What is that? I think maybe sharing some specifics about it. What is that OneNote escape room thing? Because that might generate some ideas for our teachers here.
So, so it could be anything, right?
Yeah.
Get real big there. But let's, for example, think if it wants to be math specific. So a teacher could put together a series of videos or readings and put them into OneNote, and then they put a password protection on each page, so the kids have some sort of clue, and when they solve it, takes them to the next activity or the next. Oh, perfect. I also should put a template in the chat, and so then that takes them to the next page. And so while they're kind of having this kind of a fun experience, they're really learning about math and math concepts. And so it's super engaging for the students, empowers them to learn, and we found great success. Maybe Megan wants to add on to that.
Yeah, about escape rooms or any of the other projects. I was going to use that to lead into what we were doing together with Microbit, but are there any other projects? We'll get into the Microbit one in a second here, but are there any other projects that you want to highlight, Megan, that teachers were really responding to, that like, oh, that one really, really grabbed them?
I mean, The OneNote breakout room, that one always, people are always very excited about that one. I think in general, and this isn't necessarily DLA program specific, but one thing that we've done now for 2 years that we always get a really good response on is right before winter break, when December starts, we kind of do our own Advent calendar, for lack of a different term, but it's all geared towards CS week. And so everything that's a part of that calendar is, how teachers can bring computer science into their classroom. So we have things like, we'll link to the Hour of Code website. We've found some great different coding like activities that we've put in. Sometimes it's analog stuff, so it's paper pencil type coding activities. Sometimes it's computer based, but they're all things that is geared towards like either teachers can take time in their classroom and do it, or they could just simply give this calendar to a student and let them take it home and do that. So we actually, in the Wakelet that I shared with Amanda, we've got links to our last 2 years of those calendars for folks to see if they're interested. But that's been really great. Our librarians have really loved it because it's given them something that they can share out with their students when they're coming in at at any time of the day. Our high school or secondary librarians especially like it, because then they can share it out with their teachers and be like, hey, check out this cool resource, or do this, or but that's been one of the things. Teachers are always like, hey, are you doing that again? I really liked it. Are you going to add to it, or what's so that's been a fun thing.
Yeah, just to show folks what you mean with this Wakelet here. Thanks for putting CodeJoy on there. That's really cool. That's great. And then it looks like you've got like 12 days of computer science, 12 days of computer science. You've got those resources on there. So if we wanted to look from this last year, look at this cute little advent calendar. That is so fun. And this is something that I see in common with other districts who are doing a good job of bringing people in. They're making really gentle ramps up, and they're not expecting, because like sometimes, like teachers will create some kind of or a school district will create a whole pipeline. We think about like the CS pipeline, and that is a good thing. But within that pipeline, where I see people succeeding is when there is a very nice, big, deep, shallow end that people can play in. And then when they're ready, they can enter the pipeline, right? So like a lot of simple little resources, one-off little projects, things like that, that there's like, this is a one-day project. Here's a 20-minute thing. You can just give this right to your students, like making it so easy. If it's like easier to use the resource than not, you know what I mean? Like, don't prep anything. That day that you forgot to plan for, when your sub is there, just hand out this. It'll be really simple. Having really simple on-ramps like that, and having a ton of them, not 3, not 4, but a ton of them, so that teachers, like, they get in, they meet you guys. I think those personal connections you guys make with your teachers, your reputation means so much to them. Because if Melissa Cook and Megan Heineman say, this is fun, teachers know, like, yep, okay, it's Melissa approved, it's Megan approved, so they like believe in you. So I think, you guys are also sort of the gatekeepers of what comes to your teachers, and you do such a great job of taking that seriously and only bringing the fun stuff, so that is really great.
Yeah, it's even
go ahead.
Just really quick, I don't know if Megan added to the Wakelet, but we've even done for May the 4th.
Oh yeah, that's on there too. It's at the, I think it's at the bottom.
So that's just a one-day kind of event. And so this year we did it like as a Yoda, like one Yoda is super easy for your students.
Oh, I don't think I added that one.
Oh,
That was the one I added. I'll have to go back and add that one to the Wakelet.
We'll have to add that one. And so these are just a bunch of different activities. It could even be baking Princess Leia cookies, right? So it's all different kinds of fun activities. And so we try to just get people excited about STEM and make it so, it's not, you don't have to be scared of it. It is approachable and attainable.
Yeah, and so many different, again, like little on-ramps, like Star Wars or rubber ducks, or, and like you'll get teachers who are totally obsessed with one thing. I was working with a teacher last night. We stayed on a PD for an hour after it was done because she didn't know anything about music theory, but she really wanted to program the Game of Thrones theme song in Python with her microbit. and we did it. So like if there was a Game of Thrones activity on there, she would do it, right? Because that was like her thing. So I mean, it's the same thing for students, right? We give them voice and choice, and then they feel invested in it, and then they want to do it. Teachers are just big students, you know, in this respect. Like they deserve fun. They deserve to have little like breadcrumbs laid to follow the trail to something really cool, right? So you guys are just doing such an amazing job of that at Kent. So we've got a question that came in from the chat that says, so how do you build those relationships with the teachers? Do you have any recommendations for fellow coaches and people working with teachers? How do you get those teachers to trust you or engage with you? Maybe we'll start with Megan and then we'll come to Melissa.
I'm gonna say, it definitely takes time. Like I said earlier, I'm in my 3rd year and I still feel like there are some that, you know, I'm still working on it. It takes time. It takes a lot of almost like I go in and I start just by listening to what their needs are or where they're at. And oftentimes I'll just go in and listen the first time I'm sitting with someone. But I also think for us in particular, we've been really lucky because a lot of it has come through our teacher librarians that we work with. And so they have kind of been, at least for me, my through line to classroom teachers, because our roles intentionally, specifically, like our job description is to support the teacher librarians. Those relationships were kind of, you know, they have to, right?
Yeah.
And even then there are still some relationships in that group that are better than others, but still they've been like, at least for me, my through line. But as far as like, even aside from that, a lot of it is starting small. There are times where I'll tell the librarian, hey, I'm just going to show up today and I'm just going to go around your school and see how, you know, what things are doing. And if a classroom door is open, see if they're open to me coming in. And it could be, you know, starting there. I also find it's helpful to build connections with leadership in the building too, so that they know who I am and what my role is and what I can do to support, because then sometimes they'll bring, you know, me or Melissa or whoever, you know, one of us into, if they're doing something, some sort of initiative, they'll bring us in or have us come talk at a staff meeting at the beginning of the year to introduce ourselves, so that the building teachers know, hey, oh, we have a digital learning coach for our building who can come and like be in my classroom and help me, you know, if I want to use and do a OneNote breakout room, right? Oh, that's great. So it's through those little kind of steps, I think that's where I always start. And then just making sure I'm present and there so that staff can see my face, get to know me, that sort of thing.
Yeah, there's just no substitute for FaceTime for helping people feel comfortable that you are going to be nice about giving them advice.
Yeah.
That's something we hear from a lot of teachers, that like, it's really nerve-wracking to learn in front of my colleagues. Like learning is vulnerable. Learning is first admitting, I don't know, then deciding, yeah, I do want to know, and then committing to like, you know, you just kind of feel underwater with it. And then you're like, I think I understand what's going on. Nope, I'm lost again. All right. And it kind of feels like you can't get any air, right? And to do that in front of somebody who knows what they're doing, like there's just no substitute for FaceTime of being like, yeah, I'm here to help. Let me learn from you first. And then like, you know, establishing that reciprocal relationship. That's awesome. How about you, Melissa? How do you form those relationships with teachers?
Well, a lot like Megan said, through librarians, through word of mouth, a lot of our trainings. And we do a lot of trainings outside of the workday. We have a Minecraft initiative with our district, and so we do Saturday classes, we do evening classes, and so we meet people that way. But one thing that we started this year, and Megan's really, I think I said, hey, let's do this awesome idea, and then Megan's like taking it on. I'm famous for that, so I'll admit that. But we have a Tuesday tech tip. And that's one way, super simple. We just like she said, we're a Windows district, just the Windows period, that we did a tip on that. And that's where you can add emojis to documents. And that was like our biggest in with teachers. They're like, oh my gosh, I never knew that was possible. And so that's how we've met people. So, and Megan's done a fantastic job taking that on. Every Tuesday, she's been real responsible for that. But yeah, it's just really about making relationships, being willing to come in and help, don't just throw it in on their lap, like Megan had said, that I kind of got her into it. That's how it started with me. I started taking all these trainings, and I didn't want to do it alone. So I got my 6th grade team on board, and we were doing aviation with our 6th grade students. So something we're not qualified at all to teach, but we brought in people and resources and got kids excited, and it just grew from there. So word of mouth, grassroots, definitely.
In my experience, willingness to try it is way more important than qualified to do it. Especially when like nobody else is qualified either. Well, like, oh, I'll try it. Sure.
Yeah.
Like having somebody who, like you two, who are just like, yeah, let's do aviation. I'm gonna need to Google some stuff, but let's get into it,
Definitely. And being vulnerable with your students. I told them, I have no idea what we're doing, guys. I got to solder. We're gonna figure this out. Luckily we were very safe. Nobody got hurt. But the kids love to see that too, when you are telling them, I'm learning too.
Yeah, that was me getting into robotics, honestly. That first year, I was doing an after school program. I had transitioned from being a middle school English teacher to an after school elementary STEM teacher. And I had no prep or training. They were just like, hey, you're doing robotics next week. And I was like, I don't know how to do that. Okay, sure. So I went to there were 4th and 5th grade girls, and I was like, hey, girls, we're going to try something, and Miss Kelsey is learning along with you. So no questions are bad questions, because all questions are questions that I have too. I just haven't thought of them yet. So help me think of what we don't know together, So I think that can be nice for teachers. Sometimes, teachers want to know that you've got an idea of where to go, but it's okay to, even with your teachers, be like, we're going to try something, We got a note in the chat too that Amanda Jean also does tech tips with her schools during her school during their faculty rooms, their faculty meetings together. So just like being the person who speaks up and goes, hey, I learned, and making it really quick so your admin lets you do it. Like, I got a 5-minute thing, I got a 30-second tip to share. Okay, have fun. And then people will know, they're like, hey, so Megan, you showed me that thing in Microsoft. Do you know anything about Google or whatever? Like, they'll know that you're a resource to come to. So that's really nice. So this last year, and by the way, to anybody who's just joined, we've got Melissa Cook and Megan Heineman here from the Kent School District out in Washington. And they've been doing an amazing job over quite a few years now of building coalitions of teachers within their very spread out, very diverse district, who are all sort of pulling the same cart, which is STEM and technology, bringing STEM into the libraries, bringing STEM into the content classroom areas, and really kind of what I think you guys have done an amazing job of is making an entirely carrot-based system. There's no sticks in your system. It's all like, look at this, isn't this fun? And like, people then select into it, right? Being voluntold feels so different from volunteering. It's just a whole different experience. Yes, all carrots. I love that system. So one of the things that we've been working on this last year is we've been coming in virtually and working with your teachers to learn microbit. So I think did we meet you first, Melissa? And then, okay. So Melissa, do you want to, I'm leaving a little fuzzy on it. Do you want to tell the story of like how we met and kind of what we've been up to the last year or so, 2 years?
Yeah. So I came to you guys through Bird Brain. So originally was when you were with them, and we were trying to build some capacity in our district to get robotics. And so I was taking classes and meeting up at conferences and things like that. Mm-hmm. And then you guys went off and made your company, CodeJoy. And so we're like, oh, okay. And then we were like, yes, because you guys would partner with us and do trainings with our teachers. And, I think Megan and I could probably teach some of these classes ourselves. However, you make it so much more awesome, with the sets and just the cameras, the angles, and just you do everything just beautifully when we just fell in love. And so that's kind of how we started. We partnered with you guys to develop more training. We did make a Canvas course, and we utilized your bird brain videos so that could get teachers excited about like a beginning type course on how to use the hummingbird. And then through working with you guys, we said, we want this, we want our teachers to have it. It does get expensive, and we were worried that teachers wouldn't be able to have all the hardware in their classrooms. So Megan and I developed a lending library. And so we have in our district office kits that teachers can check out for their students, you know, after they take trainings with us or through you guys or the Canvas course. And then we'll come in and consult with them and bring the kits and help them out with lessons. And that's kind of how we're growing it in our district, by having these kits already ready to go for the teachers. And then also promoting the Emphasis Foundation scholarships through the summer. The summer classes have been amazing, because that's another way that teachers can take classes and get hardware for their students. So between those two things, it's definitely becoming a reality in our district, getting those robotics in our students' hands.
Yeah. These Pathfinders classes, like we're being able to offer 20 microbits shipped to people is just such an amazing opportunity. And that is entirely funded by Infosys. So we're really grateful for their support. And then for Hummingbird, we give out one premium kit. But when we were doing a similar initiative with a Pennsylvania-based group, we had teachers who were like, okay, I want a full class set of hummingbirds. So they'd invite 11 friends, and they're like, listen, man, all you have to do is show up. You don't even have to like do very much. You just have to show up to these like 3 lessons, and then we get a whole classroom set. And they built a whole classroom set, right? So like that is actually, again, all carrots, right? Just like, hey, show up, you know? But to your point, I don't know if everybody had seen these before, but we had created, when Matt and I worked for Bird Brain, we created these professional development video courses for the hummingbird and the finch. And these video courses, they cover a lot of the same information that we cover in our live trainings, but they're available whenever. So we go through Sense, Think, Act. Matt wears different hats. I have mostly the same hair. But it's like, so you guys built this into a Canvas course, right? So how did you, the videos are just there. So you rip the videos from there. And then what did you add to it to make that Canvas course for teachers? Oh, that's a Megan question.
Apparently that's me. Even though I think Melissa's the one that, I mean, I just helped make sure it worked correctly. But anyways,
That's the job, man.
no, a lot of it was, so we kind of laid it out similar to, I think, the way it's laid out on Bird Brain. Pulled in the videos. We had some built-in time for them to like go through after they watched a video or a section of it. We had them actually, because they had the kit, even though they were doing it, you know, through a self-paced Canvas course, had them then go and actually do it. So when they were talking about the light sensors, right, we had them go and actually program it and make it blink. And then they had to either take a screenshot, like a picture of it, or record it, whatever they had done. I think we might have used Flip for that portion of it, even though I know Canvas does have a built-in screen recording, but they had to turn in some sort of evidence as they were progressing. And then at the end, there was a culminating type thing. So it kind of built it in throughout so that we could actually see that they had gone through and had learned kind of how to, you know, program and utilize it, because then after that, we then partnered with you and had those virtual meetings. So that Canvas course was kind of like the prereq. Hey, you have to do this if you want to come to this type thing. But that's kind of how it started. From there.
So with that Canvas course, so was this all in order to check something out from the lending library? Did they have to complete the Canvas course and a virtual lesson with us, or did they have to qualify in some way to check things out from the lending library, Melissa?
Yeah, so the way that we do it is they have to either take the Canvas course or a class through CodeJoy, or if Megan and I are just going to have like a Microsoft or Microbit Basics class, they have to have some sort of training that shows us that they're interested, they want to know a little bit more. And although we don't ever want them to feel like they have to be an expert, we know that all teachers feel more comfortable when they have just like a base knowledge. So we feel like that we're setting them up for success by having them do that kind of prereq. And so that's where we start.
Yeah, I think workshops like that, I see so many districts just like buy hardware and not buy any like training or PD or support to go with it. And then you know what happens with that stuff. It sits in closets and no one uses it because anything is too many things and I don't know what that is and I'm afraid I'll break it. And oh, I think we got that 2 years ago. It probably doesn't even work anymore. Like they just don't know what it is, right? So like I love how you guys set that up with Canvas with these pre-existing videos. And this is also a nice moment to just kind of like preview. So CodeJoy, we've worked for BirdBrain in the past. We formed our own company. We've really been focusing on live PD, live student shows and hardware sales. But this coming year, part of the reason that we're getting to move into this, or part of the reason that we are excited to move into this new building is we're going to have an entire studio devoted to creating asynchronous content. So those courses that we made for Hummingbird, we're going to try to make some similar PD courses on other topics and with other projects and perhaps with some more tools and things too. So as you guys are thinking about how you expand this out at Kent School District and at other school districts, it'll take us about a year to make some of those, but like this time next year, we're going to have a library of some videos that you guys can incorporate into some more courses, which is hopefully going to be a great support for teachers. And part of that was really inspired by seeing how you guys use those Hummingbird videos to expand access at your district. Those were already there, they're for free, they're on the BirdBrain site. And so many teachers were able to access that lending library because they could do it asynchronously. And so thank you guys for like using those, for telling us how you use them, because it's really spurred a lot of creativity in our team to expand that out. So woohoo. All right, so our time together is coming to an end. If you guys have any other questions for Melissa and Megan, feel free to pop those in the chat, or we're also going to instruct you about how to join them in a breakout room later if you want to discuss. But I have one last question for the both of you, which is, what is something that you are looking forward to this school year? And I'll start with you, Megan. What is something that you're looking forward to or hoping for this school year? And then we'll do Melissa.
Well, that's a big question. I don't know. I mean, I'm honestly, sounds cheesy, but I'm excited just to get back and really like start working with more around like our DLA program and thinking about all of the different things that Melissa and I have talked about wanting to bring to the Kent School District and the lending library. And all. So I'm excited to get back in and actually see those things like take shape and get shared out. Because just thinking about like the teachers that were a part of our programs last year, and some of them are teachers where I think you wouldn't always suspect that, oh, this person's gonna, you know, be the tech savviest, right? Like it was, right. It was people that you were like, oh, that's cool, right? And so being able to take that, have them now share it out in their buildings, get some more excitement, and then us being able to build it up even more and bring more kind of awareness and more programs, more like, you know, things like that. That's what I'm excited about, just to keep growing it and keep expanding it.
Yeah, I think that's something that's so exciting about when you're building coalitions, that you don't have to do it all. When the focus is on getting other people feeling inspired and qualified enough to go out and be ambassadors, as you so aptly named your program, then this next year, you don't have to go out and do all the work anymore. They are also spreading that. They're little pollinators within their own little ecosystems there. So like, what an amazingly smart model, and what a generous thing to be excited about, Megan. I'm excited for that too with you guys. How about you, Melissa? What's something you are looking forward to this school year?
He always takes the great, takes my, no, I'm just kidding. Very excited about that, but we are developing a Finch course. And so I'm really excited about focusing on our K2 teachers and getting Finches out there in the kids' hands, and robotics with the younger students. So that's something that we're working on finishing up this summer. We're gonna utilize those videos that you guys made and we'll get those to kids and teachers.
Oh, that is so exciting. I mean, man, you guys just, what you guys are doing out at Kent School District is so exciting and so inspiring. And I'm very grateful that we are able to help you guys with that and that we get to be part of your success, because your program is so successful. So Megan and Melissa, thank you both so much for joining us today. Thanks, Megan. Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you.